Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I have a phenomenal YouTuber with me right now, Movie Talk Now. I've been watching him since he released the Zack Snyder Justice League 2 explanation. He's seen some phenomenal growth over the past few months. It's been crazy, and I'm so excited he's come to the channel. I'm so grateful for him. If you guys haven't checked him out, please go check him out. I will link his channel in the description below. And yeah, so I'm just going to get right into it and ask him a couple of questions. But first, I want to know how you're doing and how everything's going with you.
Wonderful. And for all the new audience members that you're going to have watching this, I want to recommend to everyone who is following my page or is familiar with my page to follow Cade. His videos are a lot of fun. He's always great in the community discussion. His shorts are fun. His long videos are fun. So definitely check him out. Subscribe to him. He's a growing channel. We're going to see big things from him. So I look forward to speaking with you now, in the future, collaborating, all the good stuff, because we talk about very similar topics. We're fans of a lot of the similar franchises and the blockbuster movies. So there's a lot of overlap there.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess the first question that I have for you today is, how did you get started with your YouTube channel, and what barriers did you have to overcome with starting it? Because I know for me, I love movies for a long time, and I would talk to my friends so much about movies that they were like, you need to start a channel. And it took me forever to actually work up the courage, I guess you could say, to start one. So like, what was that process like for you?
Sure. So, I'm in the marketing field, as are you.
Absolutely.
I'm in the marketing field. I do video editing for my life and creative direction. And I help a lot of small businesses. And originally I had a YouTube channel about marketing. And then, as I was seeing growth, I stopped and I said, do I really want to talk about what I do for work in my free time? And is that really going to be my life? Like all marketing, all video editing. And I was like, you know what? No, I want to incorporate that into my channel, but that's not what I want to talk about. What my passion is world building.
Yes.
Movies, the cinematic universes, the franchises, all of those worlds. That's my bread and butter. That's what I enjoy. So the fact that I can bring a lot of what I do in my life, which is video editing and creative direction, I can put that into the videos. I can actually talk about what I want to talk about, and I have an enjoyment around it. So my biggest advice to anyone starting is, don't do what you think is just going to get views. That's going to not get you views. What will get you views, it doesn't matter how competitive the space is, because we're in a competitive space. We've seen results, and it's very, very possible. The way to get views is by being passionate and by offering anything, whether that's entertainment, whether that's value. If you can do either or, you're going to do much better than approaching a channel or a niche just because you think it'll do well on YouTube. That's not the way to do it.
Absolutely, yes. So then I guess my second follow-up question to that would be, I've been watching you since that video a while ago, and roughly around there, I think when that video came out, you're close to like 1,000 to 2,000 subs, and now you're at like 6,800. If this continues to grow, what are your plans for that continuing? Because I've seen the growth. Would this be something where you're like, hey, I could potentially, maybe this could be a full-time thing one day, or you just want to keep this as a hobby? Like, what would be your plans for that?
So, I might as well announce it here, what the long-term vision is. And no one has even heard this on my channel, so this is absolutely breaking.
Awesome. Yeah.
What I am looking to do in the future is not only talk about movies, but create movies for the channel.
Nice.
So we're talking about actual, with 3D worlds, 3D. I'm learning all of that right now.
Nice. That's phenomenal.
So eventually, I want this to be a larger umbrella when it comes to the movies. I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to build worlds, and I want to offer that element as well as everything else that we're doing, which I think is original in the sense of we help visualize movies that have never been made. And then we also help visualize old movies that people don't really have the patience for. Watching some of the more dated effects.
Exactly.
An example of that was the trial of the Incredible Hulk. I thought it was a great movie, but a lot of people don't have the patience to watch a more dated show like that. So
Exactly.
using modern animation effects, I helped retell that story to a newer audience, And a
Yeah.
lot of the content I do is evergreen, meaning it's not just the flavor of the month. Like these are videos that can last for a quite a while. Now,
So with that being said, and you making movies, would these, because I know your channel has a heavy emphasis on Godzilla and some of the DC universe and those things. Would they be more fan films? Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Star Wars Theory, where he makes where he makes fan films. Like, would it be like that, or would it be completely original things, or both, or
completely original, but a hybrid of those. And all I'm going to say is a hybrid of those two worlds.
Okay, all right.
Okay, but a completely original world separate from those franchises.
Okay, nice. I gotta say I'm excited for that, and I'm happy for you. I hope everything goes well. So yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
My next question is, you do an excellent job of posting polls that get people engaged into your communities. So many people interact with your polls. I basically am on there every single day to seeing what you have to post. When you create one of those polls, because I know I've created polls before, do you always have an option in your head that you want to win or you think should win? Like, do you always have that option? Or do you ever just make them and you're like, I don't know what's going to win here? Because I know when I made them, I was like, I hope this wins. And I try not to put anything in the comments to sway it that way. But I know I'm like that. So I was wondering if you were like that at all.
There's been times when I've actually hesitated uploading a poll because I thought the results may go in a different way than what I thought was objectively correct. And there's been times I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to do an example. Here was an example. And thankfully the tide has turned, because sometimes I've literally uploaded the same poll knowing that some of the energy kind of loosened off of. Have you ever heard of recent bias? Where
recency bias
happened. So you have a recent bias towards that character or those movies. And that happened after Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. Okay, so basically I had a poll and I was afraid of posting it because in my opinion, there is a right answer. What is a better movie, Godzilla -1 or Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire?
Yeah.
Now, I think Godzilla X Kong is fun. I think it's a lot of fun.
They're two different types of films. Like, they're going for two different things there for sure.
Oh, yeah. And the first time I posted that, Godzilla X Kong won. And I was like, oh, I can't believe it, And there was also a lot of, and people said what you said, and some people got mad. That was an example where some people got mad, and I was honest, and I'm always an honest guy. And I said, look, I got like thousands of votes the first day, or thousands of votes the first day. And I was honest, and I said, well, look, the more controversial my polls are, the more views my videos are going to get.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm going to delve into that. But other times, there is genuine curiosity. I do not know which is going to perform better. I recently did a poll. What was your favorite blockbuster film of the last 5 years? I had no idea what would win. And the movie I thought was going to win actually did not win.
Was that the one with Endgame? Yeah, was that the one with Endgame in it? Yeah. I saw, someone in the comments was like, Endgame was trash. And I was like, although I do think Infinity War is objectively better than Endgame, I don't think Endgame's trash. Like,
Right. I really enjoyed Endgame. I enjoy Infinity War a bit better. Infinity War is actually my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, one of my favorite movies of all time. I think when it comes to pacing, when it comes to growth for the characters, the way it flowed, the story.
Yeah, they had like 3 storylines going on at the same time, and it never feels out of place. Like, you feel you're watching one movie, and it's crazy because so many other movie universes have tried that, and they can't really catch on to what the MCU is doing. Like, I'm completely... Infinity War is my second favorite movie of all time. I was a freshman in high school when that came out, so like it lived up to all of the hype. I was so excited for it. I knew what happened in the comic books, but I was like interested in what their portrayal of the story would be. And in my opinion, I think they made Thanos a more nuanced character than in the comic books and more relatable. I know some people still like that he was trying to court Lady Death in the comic books more. That's a very comic booky feeling thing.
I didn't like it. It works for that story, but in my opinion, I agree with you. This was better than the comic story.
This is one of the, I think, rare moments where I think they completely took a spin on a character that 100% is better than the comic books. So...
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. And not only that, what I liked about it is that they didn't change, like they didn't make Thanos stronger or weaker. He genuinely, and he looks the same.
Yep.
And it was basically, you know, if you took that character and put him in different circumstances, how would he approach it? And it really was a more nuanced, smarter way of playing it. The idea that he's willing to kill the universe for a lady, I mean, first of all, she doesn't even have nerve ending. That doesn't have nerve ending. So I don't even know what you're planning on doing with her. I'm not sure if anyone is worth killing anybody over, let alone the entire universe. I mean, it really sounds like he was a simp. Let's be honest. That Thanos was a simp versus this one. He displayed what happened in Titan. So in home world of Titan, the resources were getting null and void, and there weren't enough for the population. And he offered to the leaders of Titan, hey, look, how about we eliminate half the population? It will save our whole planet. And they chose to go a different way, and the planet went extinct. He was the last survivor.
Yeah, he's a psychopath, but you can understand where he's coming from, and I think that's what works the best. And all of that, the reason I think Infinity War just works so well is that all of the hype was built up for a decade, basically up until Infinity War. And if Thanos does not work, that movie's not going to work. Like, you can give everything that else you want to about how epic that movie is, but if Thanos doesn't work, that movie doesn't work.
I only have one small complaint about that movie. I think Thanos should have had a theme song.
Yeah.
I think he should have had a theme song. If anyone deserved a theme song, it was him. And really, that's one area the MCU has lacked. And you almost have to go to the X-Men franchise to see. Like, look at Magneto's theme song in Class. You can't beat that. It is epic. It is
the only one that I can think of in the MCU is Bucky's theme song, The Winter Soldier, when he's in The Winter Soldier, like that theme song that they brought for him. That's about the only one. Of course, they have the Avengers theme song.
Avengers theme song is great. Thor had a good one. They stopped using it. I don't know why. Captain America had a good one. I really liked it in the first Avenger. They stopped using it. It just seemed like they went away from that. It seemed like they didn't have a direction when it came to music.
Yeah.
And a lot of the overall soundtracks are great, but when it came to themes, truly lacking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see what my other questions were. I know I have some more. Oh, okay. Yeah, here's one of my questions. So your channel, I guess this kind of goes with what you were telling me. Your channel, from what I can see, there's a heavy emphasis right now on Godzilla, and it looks like you've been, I don't know if it was purposely or if it just happened, like it's become a niche almost for your channel. Do you wish that, like, was that your intent, or do you wish you could talk about other movies the exact same way that Godzilla gets the following it does on your channel?
It's going to change as different franchises get more light. So for a while, Snyderverse fans really came to my page.
Because that's how I found you, is from the Snyderverse. So
there's definitely different waves based on the energy of what is happening. Okay. Right now, because of the fact that there were two amazing Godzilla movies back to back, made this the year of Godzilla. And in my opinion, it made it so. If you look at all the franchises right now, we look at the MCU, we have James Gunn's new DC universe, we have Planet of the Apes, we have Jurassic World getting a whole new trilogy, we have MCU, but then you look at Godzilla, the MonsterVerse, Kaijus, and I think that will be the #1 franchise for the next 5 years.
Yeah. So I guess
we're gonna see waves. Trust me.
No. I definitely. I mean, the MCU right now, I think they just announced that instead of doing as many movies per year, I think they've moved down to 2 movies per year and maybe 3 shows. I think they just cut it down. Star Wars, in my opinion, is in shambles right now for various things. I mean, the Tolkien series is not, I don't think, in good standing either. The Fantastic Beasts movies, I can see definitely where you're coming from. There's a lot of the franchises right now are not on their best footing, and they feel like they're more slipping.
Mark my words, though, when it comes to Harry Potter, that universe is coming back because they are actually handling it completely right. What Max is doing is the first one, they're teaming up with J.K. Rowling, which is the way to go. She's brilliant. author. Despite what you think about her political views, as an author, she's brilliant.
Yep.
They're having a new show on Max where every book is going to be a year in the school, and that's going to be a season.
Okay.
And in my opinion, that is a unique, great way to really delve into and respecting the source material while being able to grow on it and offer a different on that series. I think it's going to come back. Lord of the Rings, like you talked about, that show was just not good.
Yeah.
The last show. And they have a new movie coming out. And in my opinion, the director, if you know who he is, he played Gollum. He was also
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. I forgot the name of the character he played in the MCU. It was
Ulysses S. Claw.
Yes, yep. Mr. Claw. So as a director, he's not my favorite. If you saw Venom 2,
yeah.
Let There Be Carnage. In my opinion, that was a major step down from Venom 1, unfortunately. And for some reason, this new Lord of the Rings movie is going to be about chasing Gollum.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking. If you're going to reboot a franchise years later in a rich world with so much, amazing source material and characters and different avenues of the world, and we're bringing Gollum back, it just seemed off to me. Unless he dies at the end and it segues to a whole new thing, it just seems off to me. I mean, what do you think about that? Because to me, that was a huge surprise.
I just knew, I saw the announcement that they were making another movie. I hadn't looked at it too much, but selecting Gollum to be the character that you're going to focus on is kind of weird to me. I would have probably picked Legolas, in my personal opinion. I think the elves would be a cool to see how their order works. That's where I would have went with. But yeah, with the Rings of Power not being as good as it is, and the Hobbit trilogy I did like. I was in middle school when those came out, so I do have fond memories of them. But I know they're not exactly. I don't think since the original trilogy they've hit anything that's been quite as good as that movie franchise. So I gotta say, I'm gonna have to wait to see it to actually get excited for it.
It could happen though. If you look at Game of Thrones, very popular show, and then it became hated after the final season because it was just such a major drop off. But then they came back with House of Dragons. So is it possible? Yes. Am I skeptical? No question. Will I see it? Yes.
Yeah. So then the next question that I have on your polls is, I had one, because I know basically anytime you post Godzilla right now, he wins. I know that they just released the comic book series where he fights the Justice League, and I saw you had the other day where you had it was Superman versus Godzilla. In my opinion, I think most forms of Superman beat Godzilla. What do you? I think, because I did have in the comments someone disagreed with me. I was like, they had to make that for money. They can't have Superman fly as fast as he can just straight through Godzilla. They have to make like that wouldn't sell. I was wondering what your opinion was on that.
In my opinion, we're about to upset the audience here. In my opinion, if you look at all the feats, and then let's divide the first off, we're talking about one. I've had several polls of Superman versus Godzilla.
Because I've seen the DCEU Superman versus the MonsterVerse Godzilla. I've seen that. Obviously,
Christopher Reeve Superman versus Godzilla. I've had different versions, and let's compartmentalize them.
That's what I was trying to do in the one poll where I commented. I was just trying to do basically just an average of all the characters. Yeah. So.
So let's break it down. So when we look at Christopher Reeve Superman, who literally went around the Earth,
I put that in there because someone was like, "No, we're talking movie versions," and I was like, "Well, Christopher Reeves literally flew so fast he turned back the world's time." Like, I know it technically doesn't make sense, but that's something he did. Like he that was a feat he has.
Yes.
So
I don't see any Godzilla outside of maybe the one comic iteration where he went to hell and he did amazing. Outside of that, we're talking about the movie version, which is really what the polls were about. I see Superman wiping the clock with him.
Okay. I was just wondering how, because you're the creator of the polls, and I know that you have a better knowledge of Godzilla than I do. But I was just wondering, I was like, that is one right there where I'm like, I'm pretty sure like Superman, most versions takes out Godzilla most versions. Yeah.
So when it comes to the DCEU version versus Godzilla, that's the closest one we're ever going to get. If we look at the comic version versus Godzilla, the comic Superman is blowing him out of the water.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that's Superman.
Oh yeah, that one. I think the one I did it on was the Christopher Reeves version of Superman. I think that was
demolishes.
Yeah. So
in my opinion.
yeah. No, I was just wondering your thoughts because that's the one poll that I've had a question about the entire time. That I was like, I wonder who he thinks wins this one. Like who is his clear champion of this fight right here. So yeah, no, I really appreciate getting an answer from that. And if people do watch this from your channel, I hope they don't get too upset that is who you selected as your.
Well, let's have everyone comment below and let us know who you think would win, Godzilla or Superman, and feel free to be more compartmentalized like I was doing. Talk about Christopher Reeve Superman versus MonsterVerse Godzilla. Talk about the DCEU Superman. We're talking about Henry Cavill's version against the MonsterVerse version. And let me know in the comments what you guys think, because this is one of the most contentious questions I've ever asked on my channel.
Obviously, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel and stuff like that, and you gave me a ton of great tips. What would be some tips for like not giving up? Like, even though, like, obviously I'm going to try to learn and continue to get better as I go. So I know that's part of it, but like it does, you make a video and like, I know my videos aren't top tier and I'm still trying to learn, but you make a video that you're like, oh, I think this is good. And it gets like not as much as you were hoping. What is your, like, how do you keep going from that? Cause YouTube is a very much like fail system and keep going until it eventually works. What would be your best advice, not just for me, but for any other YouTuber that's starting out and seeing some of those? Like, what would be their motivation to keep going, and how do you keep going from that?
No question. I have three answers for that. The first one is understand that YouTube rewards consistency. So if you continue posting, YouTube prefers that. So when you start having lulls and you start posting, YouTube is going to punish you. I've had that. Last month I was super busy, posted less, and I was punished for that. So YouTube definitely takes a look at your activeness. So just consistency is important. But the one way to make sure, and I'm going to pull this up right now, if you look at my ideas list for my channel, look at this list. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, it's super bright.
Okay, so you're not going to be able to see it, but it is super long. I have a giant list of different ideas, and a lot of them I feel very passionate about.
Okay.
So instead of being so attached to one idea that I hope is going to do well, and then you have the video and it didn't do well, and you have no other ideas, and that can be very debilitating. But when you know what's next, it's different. And that's why having a data mindset for any creators out there or wanting to be a creator on YouTube, you have to look at the analytics, but you have to know how to read the analytics. That's what separated me from novice YouTubing versus getting monetized in 3 months.
Yeah.
Helped many people and many people will say, well, that's called an overnight success. I'm sure you've heard that term, overnight success. Well, it's really not overnight success when you've been helping many channels for years and you weren't cracking it until you finally realize certain things. So what I'm trying to help you guys, you and everybody else, is that learn from my mistakes so it doesn't take you years to learn certain aspects. You have to have a data mindset. You have to know what data to expect, what data to look for, and know what YouTube likes. Okay, so here's just an example. YouTube likes videos that are over 8 minutes for long form because they get to show 2 ads in that. Versus if a video is under 2 minutes, they don't like that as much. The stats will be higher. I've had short videos that the stats were higher, but it didn't perform well because YouTube prefers longer videos when we're not talking about shorts. And then when it comes to the shorts, just knowing what to expect before I even check is what separates the pros versus those that just throw things against the wall and hope that they stick.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate that. Like I do, just because I know there's some other smaller YouTubers and stuff that I talk to, and I definitely don't like. A lot of times people have like, oh, it's the algorithms problem, and like I don't want to have that mindset because I'm like, if you blame it on other stuff, then you're just always going to have a negative mindset for yourself. Like you're always putting the blame on someone else rather than I need to do better. I need to learn. There's more things I can try. Like I always want to have an avenue for how to look at it in a positive way rather than being like, hey, this is the algorithm's problem. The algorithm just doesn't like me. It doesn't care about, like, that's not how that works. And so, like, just finding motivation and stuff like that is definitely super helpful. So I appreciate you answering
Nope.
that question and giving some advice to everyone.
No question. And honestly, it's also being willing to change a bit. So here's a practical example.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started off my page, one thing I used to do a lot was here's how an actor could look like if they were to join the MCU. And originally they were getting decent views. But then they got plateaued and I couldn't get past this threshold. So guess what? I stopped doing those type of videos because there was a limit there, you know? And I moved on to just adding more value, right? So sometimes you have to be able not to be so attached to ideas. And that's why writing down ideas, I have a note on my iPhone that anytime I'm thinking, I'm driving, whatever it is, I add it to my phone. It's a giant list. That's ideas will go away. You will lose if you don't write it down. It is number one way where you just know what's going to be next. You know what's going to happen next week. And those ideas snowball. And then when you start seeing videos that work, you do more of those type of videos.
Okay. Absolutely. Transformers or Fast and Furious?
Ooh, that was a good one. Fast and Furious.
Okay. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
The Matrix or Inception?
Inception.
The Notebook or Titanic?
Titanic.
Elf or National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to have to go with Elf. I'm going to have to go with Elf on this one.
Okay, that's what I would pick as well. Okay, so based on the last question I just asked, Elf or Die Hard?
Die Hard, and let me just say one thing. It's truly sad what happened to Bruce Willis. And it should make everybody pause and stop and let them appreciate what they have in their life. And sometimes you could do the right things and you could be in fit your whole life and you could be mentally sharp, but sometimes we take for granted those things and we don't know how long we're going to have it. And the fact that Bruce Willis lost his faculties so early on in life, considering, just makes me thankful for what I have, but also just contextualize what could happen in the future and why we should strive to be as healthy as we can and strive for longevity, but also understand that anything could be taken away from us at any time. So, my hats are off to Bruce Willis, a wonderful actor, a great man, very smart, did so many versatile roles, clearly a family man. And I'm so sorry to hear about what happened with him. And, I hope his family finds some peace and solace during this time because it's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, of course.
So then the next one that I have is Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers?
Power Rangers.
Hunger Games or Planet of the Apes?
Well, let me just say, I remember was really hoping for a Green Ranger solo film. So when Jason David Frank passed away, that was really something else. Oh, man, what a shame. Now, what was the next question? Ninja Turtles or?
Hunger Games or Planet of the Apes?
Oh, Planet of the Apes.
And then
I'm a big fan of Planet of the Apes. I need to see the new film.
I saw it yesterday, actually. I'm planning on making just a small review of a short of that. Okay. So, yeah.
How was it?
It was good. I think it was a little step off from the previous three. Obviously, it's a different team doing this one, but Noah, I'm not going to try to give like too many spoilers or anything just because you haven't seen it yet, but Noah, he's the new ape. I think Caesar's like a top level character in anything, so the new ape following up Caesar is very good. I was surprised. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to like him as much as I like Caesar and everything like that, and it definitely has an interesting take on how we interpret history. I don't want to go into what happens or what's going on, but that I'll just leave it at that just because I know you're planning on seeing it.
Now, one thing that, and again, the thing with YouTube is that you have to sometimes test ideas and see if they work, and if they don't, and you can't take it personally. But just based on what you're telling me and based on how I know the Planet of the Apes crowd is growing, our core loyal fan base. People are getting excited about this trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think it should be doing even better than it is, and it's doing great. Having a video titled, "What's Next for Planet of the Apes,"
Mm-hmm.
and being speculative and being prepared and offering interesting insight is something that not many channels are doing yet. You
Mm-hmm.
can capitalize on it and have that mindset since you just saw it.
Okay.
That's just a more unique way, because a lot of people are going to do reviews, and you should still do it. Don't get me wrong. But if you're looking to experiment a little bit, it's a very big video. You just create a quick outline, and you'll offer value to people looking for it.
No, I really appreciate that. Any constructive criticism like that is perfect. Like, legitimately. I don't, no personal feelings or anything hurt like that. So yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, then the final question is Marvel or DC?
So if we look at the totality,
complete all of it
created. So if we're going to talk about as a brand, Marvel or DC,
everything.
Marvel wins. But let's break it down from what am I more excited for right now? MCU or James Gunn's DC universe? I'm thinking I'm slightly above with the DC universe, although I think James Gunn has made plenty of mistakes, and he's shown a little bit of delusion, to be honest with you. And an example of that is when I believe when someone gives someone their word, it should mean something. And Henry Cavill was given his word that he was going to be Superman, and then he was told that he was not going to be Superman. And the way James Gunn worded it, and I thought was really dismissive and disrespectful, was, I never fired him. He was never hired to begin with.
I saw that.
And because there wasn't a contract, technically, if we're gonna play courtroom verbiage, he's technically correct. But was Henry Cavill hired to play Superman? Yes. Was he given the green light to promote himself for future films and talk about the new DC universe, the Black Adam Superman rivalry? Yes.
Yep.
That was all word of mouth from the highest levels in the company. So I thought it was very dismissive, and he lost a lot of points when he did that. As a fan of these actors and characters, and just someone who views relationships and business ethics, I just thought it was a really odd move from him. But overall, I have liked what he has done in the past. If he can avoid comedy, if Superman 2026 can be a serious movie, I think it could be a very big, awesome universe.
I'm pretty excited for that movie because I do like a lot of the stuff James Gunn does. I agree with you. I don't think it should have his classic comedy that he kind of tags some of his movies, but I've heard that he's using the story of Superman Legacy to inspire the movie, and that makes me really excited for where the story and stuff could go and his interpretation of who Superman is. Because personally, Man of Steel is one of my favorite Superman movies ever. It's one of my favorite superhero movies ever. It's probably still in my top 10. But I definitely see where some people have the flaws with the Superman that they showed. And he's still not the Superman that I usually think of in my head. But I do like the direction that Snyder took on it. Like, I thought it was a very cool, I would call it an Elseworld story more. But for me, like, I still want that really happy, optimistic version of Superman to be modernized.
The Superman, the animated series, and Bruce Justice League, I thought made a really great Superman. Where
are you talking about the JLA and JLA Unlimited?
Well, yes, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Okay,
yes. Tim Burton, and then before that was a Superman animated series, and Batman the animated series sometimes interacted with Superman the animated series. So there was a genuine world building.
Oh yeah, and they had Batman Beyond was part of that as well. In the future,
Yes, and that Superman was still around. So he really had a full arc. And I really enjoyed that Superman. He wasn't too OP.
Oh yeah, that's where most of where I think of characters from the DC universe, my definitive version of a lot of characters from DC comes from that JLA show.
Agreed.
Like that's where I'm like, okay, when I think of especially someone like Green Arrow, I'm like Green Arrow. That when I think of Green Arrow, instantly, first one that pops up into my head is that version of Green Arrow. Captain Atom. He has an episode where he sacrifices himself. Anytime I see Captain Atom, I'm like That's Captain Atom, right? Even Lex Luthor, I still that is the Lex Luthor. When I think of okay,
No
like yeah,
question.
it's not even close. Like that Lex Luthor in that show is who I think of. And that Superman is still one of the characters that I'm like that's who I think of Superman still to this day. So
I wonder if anyone on this planet, when they think of Lex Luthor,
mm-hmm.
if they think of Kevin Spacey, considering he played Superman
Yeah,
in Superman Returns.
returns.
Most people forget that.
Yeah, I would say there's not a unless you grew up like perfect, you're just a high schooler, and that's the Superman movie that came out. So like when you think of it, because like I still think the actor that I think of Lex Luthor is still Jesse Eisenberg, just because I was high school, middle school age. So he'll
Yes.
always just in my head, just because he was the first one that I saw, he will be Lex Luthor, even though that is not my definitive version. I'll just always be like subconsciously, I'm like, oh yeah, Jesse Eisenberg, that was Lex. Yeah, so. There probably are some, but I wouldn't say a lot.
I will say, as a big fan of, obviously, I'm a fan of Snyder's work. If you look at my channel, you know I'm a fan of the work. But in my opinion, the biggest mistake that he made was, well, two things. One was his version of Lex Luthor. I thought he was too zany. I didn't understand
he wasn't Lex Luthor. That in no way was. I don't know what. I'm with you too because that's how I found your channel. Is I was looking for other people that were talking positive about the Snyderverse. Of course, we did have that wave that came through when the Snyder Cut came out. There were those people, but before that, like everyone just hated on it. And I definitely see its flaws. I see its flawed interpretation of some of the characters, but I think movie directors and creatives have the freedoms that they need to be able to take some of those steps to keep things fresh. Like we can't just be having the same portrayal of the characters over and over again because then you're never getting a new vision on who they are. And even though I still think that a lot of his visions were flawed, I still loved what he was doing creatively. Like I still felt like a lot of it was epic. Like he had epic scale of what was going on, even though that maybe some of his ideas were a little off. That's my personal opinion of the Snyderverse, but I like DC better than Marvel, so I was always going to give it a bigger chance than most people. Yeah.
And look, I agree with you because when you think about quintessential DC characters, most people don't think of the Snyderverse versions of characters. But if you really think about it, modern Batman, in terms of on screen, has been around since 1989. So we've seen standard Batman. So the idea of, okay, but what happens if Batman truly loses it? He loses hope and goes as far as he could and ends up actually killing people and branding people. And this is a version that didn't always do that. If we look back,
the Jason Todd stuff,
he just things of, and I like that take. Now, should that be quintessential Batman from now on? No, it shouldn't be. Batman honestly should have a no kill.
I said that's exactly what you just said is exactly how I feel about it. Is like I'm glad that version of Batman does exist because if we kept going through the same, like we have Pattinson's Batman right now, which looks like he's going to have that rule set as like that's going to be his rule. Well, it's like if we got the Batfleck Batman and he had that rule, well, it would be like 3 Batman in a row that have had that rule, and then it's at like this point, then it's like, okay, when does Batman fatigue step in? So that's why I'm always fine when a director comes in and they have like something like the Joker 2 is like it's looking interesting, but I'm glad someone's taking the creative freedoms to tell something different within the superhero. I don't want to call it a genre because I don't think superhero movies are a genre. I think they have a lot of subgenres, but I think it keeps the superhero movies fresh and intriguing. Even if I go and watch it and it's not even close to one of my favorite superhero movies, I'm going to be happy that someone took a different chance rather than just making a generic superhero film that we've seen multiple times over again.
I 1,000% agree with you, and that's the only way this can stay fresh. That's the only way this can, this can work and continue and keep rebooting the same characters over and over. It has to be different takes, has to be different versions. And, I hope someday there's some conclusion to the Snyderverse in some fashion, whether it's a Netflix spinoff, whether it's an animated film. But for those who do want to know how it ends, go to my channel, check out
Exactly.
Justice League.
That's how I found out. That is how I
Part
found
2.
out right there. Is I watched your
Yes,
videos and yeah.
and those are based on Zack Snyder's
Mm.
storyboards, so they weren't imagined. They're not fan
Yeah,
fiction.
it's from his storyboards that you pulled from.
Exactly, his own
Mm.
storyboards that he leaked out during the promotion of the Snyder Cut.
Mm.
And I think many people are going to be surprised how it ends, and some of the twists and
Mm.
turns. Especially Justice League 2 is a dark movie.
Uh-huh.
Now, what makes me wonder, and people are going to watch that, and who had, it seems like it seems like Marvel's version and the Snyderverse version was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me wonder who had the idea first.
Exactly. That's how. Dang, I forgot which movie it was. It was like a Pixar and DreamWorks movie, and someone that was working in either say it was DreamWorks first. Someone that was working in the DreamWorks room went to Pixar and gave them the idea, so they greenlit the film at Pixar before DreamWorks even got it off the ground. So they ended up getting a movie that wasn't even their idea first. It was one of the popular ones too. I want to say it was maybe Rango. But I can't remember which film it was, but I remember watching a video talking about how some of the insiders like went over to the other place and pitched the idea to them. They got a lot more money, even though it was an idea that had already been made. So yeah,
Wow.
like that definitely is something that somewhere along the line people were hearing ideas from the other studio and put them in there. So
Because and that's funny, and I want to know when you find out what movie that is. Let me know.
I'll have to look. I wish I could remember because I remember it had something. I want to say it was DreamWorks took the idea from Pixar and Pixar had it and it was like about a newt. So it was about some type of lizard. But I can't remember why. This was years ago when I was like in high school still. So, but I remember watching like a long video about how like they took it. I'll try to send you a message about it or comment somewhere on your channel about when I find it. So
That's great because when people look at Justice League Part 2 and Part 3, they're gonna be like, "Wow, this is very similar to Infinity War in terms of the overall idea, how it gets resolved, and what has to get done." But one aspect that I really do like is in Justice League Part 2, everything that can go wrong goes wrong.
Yeah,
and that's what I'll say. And to see the heroes go through that and Earth go through that, it's a different take and it's a different story. And we truly see that nightmare world really flesh out. So it's very interesting. And, they definitely, no one can say they didn't have a vision.
Oh, not, I don't think anyone ever distrusts Zack Snyder for not having vision. I think it's they distrust some of his ideas within that vision and how he portrays some things.
Now, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, Zack Snyder hate has become more and more common.
It's because of the Rebel Moon stuff. Have you watched either of those?
I did. Yeah. I did. And I thought Part 2 was fun. Part 1 was a little sluggish. It was a little redundant. I've seen that story before where the team assembles and you learn who the team is and you learn who the bad guy is. And it was okay. It was good for Netflix. Part 2 I thought was a step up, and I hope to see that world in some capacity. I'm interested in it. But there was definitely so much hate for that movie right off the get-go. I felt like people were leaving reviews for it without even seeing it. Now, what did you think about it?
I actually have not seen Part 2 yet. I saw Part 1. I didn't think Part 1 was bad. There was more that I could have wanted from that movie. I wish you would go more into the world that they're in, because it's just like you have the griffin creature, the spider creatures. It seems like there's a lot of lore there. I haven't watched the second, so I don't know if he expands on the lore and stuff like that. And I would have rather him spent more time in the world than with some of the characters, because some of the characters I thought were pretty much as generic as you could get. So, and I'm completely fine with going and having a movie more focused on world building, especially if he was announcing multiple movies, and then you go into the character stuff next.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I thought about it. Some of the visuals too from Rebel Moon looked really, really good, and then other times you could tell it was just on a green screen. Like I don't know what was going on there. Like there was a couple scenes when they're on like the farm, and the backdrop is just like that looks like a green screen that was just put there. Like it does not look any like. So yeah, that I felt like that had a little bit that let me down a little bit. But other than that, I did think I think I reviewed it and gave it like a 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. So, and my average for like an average movie, I would say is like a 5 out of 10. So I thought it was a little bit above average. So
Yeah. So your average is pretty low.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think most movies are pretty like, well, 2 hours of my time
it's
gone.
weird because like I actually like most movies. So I have very few movies that I have below a 5 out of 10.
Mm.
So like most of them I always have above a 5 out of 10. But then when it gets closer to the top, I have not as many movies where I have like 10 out of 10s. So
I would say the biggest drop from one movie to the other was Ghost Rider. I
mm,
thought Ghost Rider 1 was a good movie.
mm,
And then you look at Ghost Rider 2, and in my opinion, is one of the worst movies of all time. Of all
yeah,
time.
I see. I've only seen the first. I didn't even because I didn't grow like I was a small kid when those were coming out, so I only have the retrospective knowledge. And when I watched the first one, I was like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this already, and I see that the second one's bad. Or I guess I haven't seen it, so I can't say if I think it is, but that's what I've heard about it. So I was like, I don't really feel like giving it a shot right now.
Yeah, I was a teenager. I saw it in theaters, and
Hmm.
that was a terrible experience.
Yeah, I've
Now,
did you ever see the movie Max Steel?
no, I haven't.
Yeah,
Not
that
yet.
that's like one for me. That was a superhero movie that came out. It was a TV show. It came out in theaters when I was like just getting into high school, middle school, and I wish I never went to see it because it was that's going to be like a movie that I feel like in the future if I talk to someone that's younger, they'll be like, "Oh, you watched that?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, I was in high school. I wanted to see every superhero movie that came out." So I went to go see that one and that happened to be one of the ones that was actually terrible. So,
I it was I before Endgame. I saw no matter what it was, I saw every single MCU
mm,
movie.
same.
But after Endgame, there were just too many misses for me, and then I made the decision. I'm not seeing every single one.
I know
That beats
it hurts me to my core that I'm like that now because I would
yeah.
do it even for the DCEU. I would go
Hmm.
see every single one of them basically because I was in fourth grade when the Avengers came out. That was the first superhero movie I saw in theaters, and from
Yes.
then I saw basically all the way up until I'm trying to think which one I watched. I went to see the Eternals in theater. I saw Black Widow in theater. I'm trying to think of which one I stopped, but it was recently like after COVID and this next phase that I was like, yeah, I
For
can't.
me, I think it was Love and Thunder. That was just it for me.
Hmm.
That might have been the last one where I just said enough is enough.
I think for the MCU, I actually think I've seen everyone in theater except for the Marvels. I think that was the one where I was just like, yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the MCU shows right now. Um, I
Mhm.
haven't I haven't been in love with any of the shows that they've made. I
I like
do
Loki. I like
I
the
do like Loki, and I did like Moon Knight, and I did like WandaVision because it's one of those things where I think they took some really good creative freedoms. But then I was
yes.
so upset because the whole show is just like really unique. And then for whatever reason, in the last episode, they just have to have a random CGI fight. And I'm like, in a show like this, I feel like you could have come up with a different way
Should have been.
to end the movie. Like I'm still waiting for like the superhero movies that realize you don't have to have some giant fight to end it. Like take the Dark Knight for example. It wasn't the fight that concluded the movie. It was
Mhm.
more dialogue and what had been set up from. And I'm waiting because I think that's why people liked Across the Spider Verse so much. Is it wasn't really a fight that was the final like third act like oh my gosh this is crazy. It was more like the dialogue and what's happened within the movie and the actions and decisions made by the characters that make for a dramatic effect. And I'm still waiting for more superhero movies to pick up on that because I'm like so many of them just think oh we're just going to have the giant CGI fight and that's what people love. And it's like sometimes that is definitely the case. Like the Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, both of those things were epic in scale. There's so many more that I could say, but those were just some of the ones that came to mind. But yeah, so I'm definitely waiting for more superhero movies to catch on that it doesn't have to be like a fight like that.
That last episode was a disappointment. It just did not feel like it was from the same show.
Oh no,
Exactly how you did. It should have ended with some type of mental breakdown and her overcoming it and coming to peace with it, and maybe she loses vision and maybe she doesn't, or and maybe it's them talking as she's destroying the land around her, and the dialogue between who's gonna win, Wanda or Wanda.
Exactly.
But instead, we got. And now we're gonna see Agatha.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a musical. It just makes me feel like
I don't even I don't even know if I can watch it. I just with the MCU's track record, I'm just like right now I'm like I don't know if I can.
I'm personally not watching that show because I'm done with being insulted. This is not what we wanted. This is not what we asked for. The fact that we're getting a musical Agatha the Harkness before Doctor Doom, to me, is just like an insult to fans.
Yeah.
It's an insult to fans. Just the priorities that they have, and the fact that they just shoved this in front of us because she was trending the week of a WandaVision episode. That doesn't mean you deserve a whole spinoff.
Exactly.
And it's unbelievably ridiculous.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I guess the final question that I have for you, and I've talked about the project, one of the projects that I'm working on, it's kind of going to be a two-part thing, is what would your top 10 movies of all time be?
Okay. So, in no direct order, let's list some of them. So first off, we have Gojira, or Godzilla King of the Monsters, 1954. That movie changed my life. It changed decades of cinema and movies and the way that they use pseudomation instead of claymation and standimation to bring a character to life and add that horror and show it a different perspective from the other side of the world, from the United States, a non-Hollywood film. I think that movie will forever stand the test of time in terms of what it did, how it looks, what it's capable of. That's one of the top ones. I said this before, Avengers Infinity War, in my opinion, is the perfect climactic movie with an amazing intro. We see Thor, Hulk, Ragnarok all defeated right before even the intro.
Oh, yeah.
Just add that weight to the villain. Spider-Man 2, Raimi verse, Tobey Maguire, Dr. Octopus, just so many great action scenes, great writing, great love making, just the whole story as a whole. And it stands the test of time. If you watch that movie now, it was as great now as it was then.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That movie, just unbelievable. I really enjoy Inception as far as we were comparing it before to Matrix. When it comes to a modern movie that makes you think and has different plot twists, and the acting is just unbelievably on top. And that also goes into Wolf of Wall Street. I absolutely love that movie. When it comes to humor, an actual real story, Jordan Belfort is a fascinating character. And what's fascinating is the FBI agent assigned to that case with Jordan Belfort, who reviewed the movie, saw the movie, and said, this is one of those times where the movie actually didn't go far enough as far as the craziness that happens. So usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
The movie is crazier than they have to embellish what happened rather than the real life. But in this version, it was actually toned down for movies, which is wild. Lord of the Rings Part 2 is has to be one of the best movies of all time. Godzilla -1, I think, nailed it in every aspect, every element. There were certain scenes that I genuinely thought was a puppet, and then I learned it wasn't.
Yeah.
And one scene speaking about in particular, which I'll pull up the image, Godzilla's head is moving across the water, and they do a close-up teeth, and they're looking down, and it just looks like a puppet. And it's unbelievable. That movie blew me away in terms of what it was capable. And then, of course, The Dark Knight. Not beat The Dark Knight in terms of what that movie pulled off, the acting, and usually long movies can suck. Every minute of that movie held you in your seat The pacing was phenomenal. The action was phenomenal. The visuals were phenomenal. Him going to Hong Kong and doing the paragliding, every aspect of that grounded that movie is definitely, in my opinion, one of the greatest movies of all times. No hands barred. That is just absolutely unbelievable. Those are really I would have to say, my favorite movies. I'm just trying to think for a second if I'm missing any. I know we spoke before, but I have to say that has to be my favorite. Yeah, I would say that's my list of favorite movies. Now I'm sure I'm missing a few. I don't know how many I listed there.
I think we maybe got 8 or 9. I think we were
okay. Yeah. So I think I would say that's. Let me you know what, The Godfather, King Kong 1933, Titanic. Those are just some great films. Titanic truly holds up in terms of making a love story around such a tragic event that was so hard to believe. I thought Avengers 2012. Many people don't talk about that movie anymore, but I was 18 when that movie came out, and I just remember not sure if this was going to work. I was hoping, and I was a big fan of the Avengers, but couldn't work putting all these people together and a story that could work, and it worked, and they did it, and it was just so awesome. And they didn't nerf anybody. Hulk was the Hulk. Iron Man was Iron Man. Thor was Thor. It didn't matter. That was such a great movie. So that's definitely my list of favorite movies.
All right. Well, I really appreciate that, and that will most likely be used in a future video as well. So I'm very happy that you did that. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that basically sums up all the questions that I had for you today. And like I said, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Everyone, go check out Movie Talk Now. It is a phenomenal channel that just talks all types of movies, all types of blockbusters, and as you can see, this is one of the nicest guys on the internet. So just go show him lots of love. So yeah, that's all I have to say.